What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my main man, Steven Thompson. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. Today, the Pittsburgh Steelers are nearing and very close to their first regular season action of the 2023 season as they host the San Francisco 49ers, but they have a huge question mark. Will Nick Bosa step on the field for the 49ers in week one? We'll dive into that, plus more. Kenny Pickett has been named a captain, and the expectations are rather lopsided, I would say, here and there. We'll dive into all that and more. It's a beautiful day in the Berg. How you feeling, my friend?
You know, some people might call this beautiful. I call it hot, and I call it sticky, and I call it gross, and I call it lantern flies jumping all over me while I'm everywhere. At pit practice. You cannot stand along the fence at the practice facility without getting mobbed by lantern flies. They've gotten more aggressive too. They're out for blood. I think they.
100%. First off, I don't know if they're attracted to football. Maybe they're just excited for the season as we are, but their presence at the Steelers facility is ridiculous. They're more than anywhere else in the whole city. If you go to the facility in Southside, you will see more lantern flies than you've ever seen they line the walls, just like you said. It's gross. And they're like, they don't even try to land near you anymore. They're just like, oh, your face, let me hit it. Sounds good to me. And you're right. I tried the other day. You said it a couple weeks ago to me. You were like, oh, I squatted one or I smacked one and I got guts all over me. I thought you were lying. I thought that they didn't have guts in them and that they just died, like they just fell over. That was the end of it. No, smacked one on the shorts the other day, exploded all over me. It was gross. They suck. But it is hot. It is sticky. It's September and it's like 85. It felt like literally, when was this? Monday? We were talking about it. Maybe it was Friday. We were talking about how it just felt like football season. It was like, ooh, a little crisp in the air. This week, it's just like, hey, remember the sun? Yeah. There it is. Full force.
Yeah. Just, we're going to make you miserable one more time before we actually give you some nice weather again.
Yeah, before fall actually hits. But we're close. And either way, football will be played on Sunday. If I had to guess, the Steelers will be in white because there's no chance they're breaking out black uniforms if they don't have to in 90-degree heat at Acrisure Stadium. But plenty of excitement. We will dive into that. The San Francisco 49ers, a team that many expected to play for a Super Bowl last year, possibly would have. If you ask anybody in San Francisco, the answer is yes. Played in the Super Bowl last year if they had a quarterback. Brock Purdy returns. Trey Lance is gone. George Kittle is a question mark for Sunday. Christian McCaffrey is healthy, and they also get Elijah Riley back as a backup. But the biggest question mark by a mile is Nick Bosa and whether or not he will play. He is still in a holdout as they try to negotiate a new contract. He's looking for record-setting money. Don't blame him, coming off a Defensive Player of the Year award season. We're coming down to the wire. 3 days. I think the latest reports are from Diana Rossini of The Athletic that says that a record-breaking deal is on the table for him. Hard to imagine that it actually is, or it's the money that he's looking for if he hasn't accepted it yet. If he does take it, maybe he does play. We'll dive into that in a second. But you hear the reports that there's money on the table. You hear the reports that he still has not been there. You have to have some thoughts about everything that has happened with Nick Bosa and the San Francisco 49ers.
Well, we're really coming down to the wire. So if you're a 49ers fan, I think this worries you like a lot. Yeah. I still think, if I was a betting man, I'd say he's on the field for week one in Pittsburgh and he plays and he's just as good and he's, Nick Bosa. But if there's record-breaking money on the table, it's hard to imagine him not taking that money. Yes. But, if he hasn't taken it by now, then, when is he going to? And I guess the big question is how much prep time does Nick Bosa need to really be effective,
I think that's the big one is, can they put him out on a practice field on Friday and have him play on Sunday? Can they put him out on a practice field on Saturday and have him play on Sunday? Mike Tomlin had this to say before we dive in a little bit more.
Yes, we are preparing for Bosa. It's prudent for us to assume that he's going to be there and prepare in that vein as opposed to be surprised. We were in a similar circumstance with a dynamic rusher a couple of years ago in TJ. We got a deal done at the 11th hour. He showed up in the stadium, and he was TJ Watt that day. And so that's what those guys do. They show up, and they are who they are. And so we expect him to be there. It's a prudent approach to take, and if he's going to be there, we know the type of player that he intends on being, and so that's something to be dealt with.
The big thing here, and I think the conversation that everybody wants to have is, well, this is a pretty dead-on comparison, just like Mike Tomlin said, to TJ Watt 2 years ago, held out or held in all summer long, did not practice, did not participate in training camp, did not participate in the preseason, signs a deal on Friday, if everybody remembers, bashed down, kicked down Art Rooney's door, walked in there, shook his hand, said, we got a deal, let's take this into week one. Showed up, I believe it was in Buffalo. I want to say the game was in Buffalo 2 years ago, week one, 2 days, zero practice. Showed up 2 days later, finishes the game with 2 sacks, finishes the season with the single season sack record and a Defensive Player of the Year trophy. So obviously expectations for Nick Bosa could be very high if you compare him to TJ Watt. I think the biggest difference here is I was there that summer, and what I saw was a lot of TJ Watt working. You know, he never left. He was there every single day at practice. He was constantly working on the sidelines with coaches. He was always dressed. He just wasn't actually participating. Like, he was as close to practice as you could possibly be during that summer. Nick Bosa, from what I know at least, has not been in a facility in 6 months. Hard to imagine that that's going to transition. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I just view it as, you know, I get it, but it's a different situation.
Yeah, it is different. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you like mixed up hold in and hold out. Like that's the big difference here is, you know, TJ Watt, for all he wasn't doing, he was still around the team. He was still watching their preparation for Buffalo, I guess you said it was.
Yeah.
It was that year. If Nick's not around to game plan, you wonder what like he's doing to stay in shape. Like, how is he, if you put him out in a practice field on a Friday, is he going to be ready to play a ton of snaps on a game day? Like I think that's a big question. I think, is he going to be in tune with what the rest of the defense is doing? All those are open questions, and I'm inclined to believe that, yeah, he'll be fine. But, you know, that's in doubt when you're away from your team for so long and when you're away from football in general for so long. Like, there's a difference between working out. There's a reason that even superstars, you know, come back and do training camp with their team, because working out on your own is just not the same as being with your team and getting to go through all that prep for the regular season and doing all of that stuff with the team. Yeah,
exactly. And on top of that, like, just like you said, the game planning aspect of this, you have no, I mean, you probably did, and I would imagine Nick Bosa did do his own film study or whatever, but to sit in with coaches and to have those meetings about, hey, you know, this is what the Steelers are going to do. This is how they've changed. This is how they've evolved. This is how Kenny Pickett's evolved. This is how the offensive line has evolved. It's totally different. And I get it. Like, an edge rusher's job is probably one of the easiest jobs in the NFL. Like, physically demanding, of course, but mentally just see ball, get ball. That's as far as it gets. And you could go and do that, especially if you're Nick Bosa, but I don't know. It's really tough to say that you are at 100% if you have not practiced and you're just now hitting a point where you're stepping onto a football field. You know what I'm saying? On top of that, I think there's optimism there that people are going to, you know, pay this guy and that he'll be on the field, but I'm not 100% sold that it's going to actually happen if it does. Let me ask this. If Bosa doesn't play, how high do the Steelers' chances of winning that game increase? Currently, they are 2.5-point underdogs at home against the 49ers.
Oh, you give them at least a point, or like 2 points probably, right? You said they're favored, right?
They're underdogs.
Oh, they're underdogs? Oh, then it becomes at least a pick 'em, if not Steelers favored by what, like 2.5 or something?
Yeah.
Because arguably the biggest question on their offense is the offensive line, especially at the tackle spots where they would be dealing directly with Bosa. And I don't know, you take a defensive player of the year off of the defensive line, you make things worlds easier on whoever, Chooks or Dan Moore. I'm not sure which one he would actually.
I think he switches sides.
Yeah. So, but either way, like you're making it a lot easier on him. You're giving more opportunities for Kenny to be comfortable in that pocket. Just stand back there and sling it. And yeah, I think it completely changes the game. For as good as the 49ers are on all three levels, you have to imagine like Bosa leads the whole thing. I guess Fred Warner probably does, but
yeah.
When you're thinking about facing a second-year quarterback, and I don't know, I feel like if I'm the 49ers, I do not want Kenny to have any time back there at all. You know, like I feel that's the easiest way to shut this game down and to shut the Steelers down. And if you take Bosa out of that equation, that becomes so much harder.
Yes, I agree. I think that's the thing. Like that's the biggest thing is for the Steelers, it's 50% the offense has to click, but it's 50%, and I think possibly more, that the defense has to just make Brock Purdy's life a nightmare. Like they have to be able to, they cannot let the San Francisco 49ers offense control this game. Whereas it's reversed, San Francisco's thinking the same thing. Brock Purdy should not have to go out there in his first game as a sophomore in the NFL, coming off of a major surgery with a limited practice time. And I get it. Like he's been back for a little while, but still, like this is his first full game where he will see action after his surgery. And you do not want to put this game on him. You do not want to say, hey, you have to go win this. This is, this game's going to be tight the whole time. This is yours. And the Steelers are comfortable. Like I get it. San Francisco's defense is great and a lot tougher than just Nick Bosa. Just like you said, Fred Warner's there, Javon Hargrave's there. I mean, that entire front seven, I don't know what I can't tell you every single name, but I could tell you that they're coming off of probably the best defense in the NFL a year ago. And
they they added Javon Hargrave.
They added. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like they didn't get worse. Mm-hmm. So you have to look at that and just say they'll still be good, but their biggest component, the Steelers defense, is still good. You take TJ Watt out of that, they're nowhere near as good. You take Nick Bosa out, they're nowhere near as good. You're about to put the game on Brock Purdy's shoulders. You don't want to do that. I agree with you. I think that I don't know how the Steelers aren't favored right now. Like, I think the Steelers should be favored, especially with, there's so much hype around this team. Mike Tomlin, we were at Tomlin Tuesday, and he was asked like 5 times, like, hey, what do you do about the hype around this, the optimism around this team? It's like, nobody cares, but the optimism's there. I thought they should be favored. If Nick Bosa doesn't play, they're easily favored. Let me ask this the other way. If he plays, doesn't practice, shows up, what are your thoughts there?
I still, what did you say there now? 2.5 point underdogs the Steelers are?
Yes.
Yeah. So like, I don't know. That sounds right to me.
Yeah.
Like, especially for week 1, like you said, Purdy coming off like a limited offseason, off surgery, like that all matters. Like, especially in week 1, like that stuff is hyper important in week 1. I feel like it just, I don't know. Whereas the Steelers are kind of coming off a really smooth preseason, I feel like that gives them advantage specifically in this first game.
Yes.
Like it is, they're hitting the ground running, whereas the 49ers are going to have to find their footing a little bit. The 49ers are the more established team. Like they've been there and done that, but I don't know. Like I would still, even if he does play, it's a pick him at best. It's like 1 point or something in my mind.
Yes. I look at it like this. Like if Nick Bosa plays and everything's fine and the defense is 100% and you get everybody back, I expect the San Francisco 49ers to be a great football team. But I also expect them to be coming off of a very dramatic week. And that's a lot to put on the side. You know what I mean? It is very difficult to travel across the country where you're losing 3 hours of time and step onto a football field where you just got the best player on your team back 36 hours ago. For the first time you're practicing with him in a walkthrough the day before a game, before you get on a plane and fly 7 hours. That's as hard as it comes. So I just think that Pick'em is a good one. I'm sure that the line will change before the game, depending on, reports and what the outlook of Nick Bosa is. But I think either way, the Steelers should be favored. Like I look at this and just say, like, the Steelers are like we've hit a point with the Steelers where it's so boring. There's nothing to talk about right now. Yeah. We are waiting for football because you're like, okay, either we get to hype this team up more and say, oh, everything we said and predicted was right, or we have to be like, okay, let's calm it down. There are a million problems, or there's this problem, or there's that problem. They got to fix it. But right now they are as boring as they come. San Francisco 49ers, I couldn't even tell you how they did in the preseason. I couldn't tell you about how good they look right now. All I could tell you is that every single person in the national media is talking about whether or not Nick Bosa is going to play football. And a lot of people are like, yeah, well, let him sit out. And a lot of people are like, well, maybe he's going to sit out. And I think that draws so much attention away from the game that it is going to be hard to bounce back in 36 hours.
Yeah, and I think if this game was played in like week 4 or week 6, we'd have totally a completely different outlook on it than if it's week 1, literally your first game of the year. Like strange stuff can happen in week 1. Like the Steelers hold it, like picking off Joe Burrow 3 times last year in week 1.
That
doesn't happen in the next time they played, whatever that was, week is double digits.
I don't even remember. Yeah.
But that doesn't happen. The Bengals put up 30 points or whatever in the next game.
Yep.
Like so Steelers can strike while they have an opportunity.
Yep, I agree. 100%. I agree. What's up, guys? I have super exciting news to share with you. We have merchandise from t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts, and hoodies, and plenty of designs from Pickens to Pickett, Muth, Bleed Black and Gold, and of course, all of your All Steelers talk gear, all available at blackandgoldapparel.myspreadshop.com or on the store tab at our YouTube page. We cannot thank you guys enough. We would not be here without each and every one of you, and it feels awesome to be able to represent the AST brand and to spread that representation out to all of Steelers Nation. We know that you guys and us, we are one, and this has been one hell of a ride. Again, we cannot thank you guys enough. Check out everything at blackandgoldapparel.myspreadshop.com or on the YouTube page, or the store tab, on our YouTube page to get all your AST gear and whatever t-shirts, sweatshirts, shorts, nutties, coffee mugs that you're thinking. Again, thank you guys. Let's move on to the other big news that came out of the Pittsburgh Steelers this week, and that is their captains. A change of the guard on offense. Obviously, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Miles Killebrew remain the captains on defense and special teams. Offense, it goes from Mitch Trubisky and Najee Harris to second-year quarterback Kenny Pickett. No more Najee Harris, which I think is a story within itself, but I'm trying really hard not to make it a story. You know, I'm trying really hard to not be like, there's got to be a reason that Najee wasn't voted captain 2 years in a row when, you know, everybody, like, that's all Mike Tomlin talked about all year last year was Najee Harris he's a captain guy. He's a leader. He is a leader on this football team. And then this year, there's a lot of questions about Najee Harris. And then, boom, Najee is not voted a captain, which is a little even more concerning. I'm, again, not trying to make it a story. Kenny Pickett takes over as captain, second-year guy. Mike Tomlin, very praises. I don't even know what the word would be there, but very hopeful for what he sees and explained Kenny Pickett's captainship as such.
Proud of the group that this group selected yesterday. Kenny Pickett on offense, and I think him being the lone captain on offense is obviously no disrespect to the leadership of others, but probably more a reflection of everyone's feel of his growth and development, not only as a player, but as a leader within this collective. I think the votes reflected that. They weren't just one-sided. I think it was reflective of the team's view of him and his growth and development. And so excited about that.
Kenny Pickett, second-year quarterback, named captain, replaces the starting quarterback from last year. I think, you know, a little expected. All we heard all summer long was, oh, Kenny's growth. Kenny is confident. Kenny is comfortable. Kenny is a leader now. That's all you heard all summer long. Finally named a captain. Heading into the season, plenty of optimism around him. Maybe way more hype than should be this early, but it's somewhat deserved after the preseason 3 games that he had. Finished with a perfect QBR, 5 drives, 5 touchdowns, 3 total touchdowns thrown. I mean, you look at him, were you surprised? And do you have thoughts on Kenny replacing Najee and Mitch as the captain?
I was not surprised at all. This seems like pretty standard practice for starting quarterback. Like Anthony Richardson is a captain for the Colts. Yeah. But I don't think. But in that same vein, I don't think it's like undeserved. I don't think they're just handing this to Kenny. I think it's confirmation of what literally everyone has said in the locker room since he took over in week 4, I believe that was. Is just that this guy has natural leadership qualities, that he has a gravity that people are drawn to, and all of that, and it shows up on the field when he's commanding the units. So I think it's confirmation of that, in addition to kind of what you want from your starting quarterback. And as far as him replacing Najee and Mitch, replacing Mitch was a little obvious, that makes sense. But replacing Najee, I wonder if Najee was in there last year just kind of because you want to make your starting quarterback a leader. But, Mitch was new last year. He'd only been there for a couple months. I'm not saying he wasn't a leader, but, just how solid of a leader, whether he was – I think Najee was there to kind of support Mitch and, be another offensive captain. And maybe the Steelers just thought, well, Kenny's done enough and he's been around here for an extra year, so he kind of knows this team a little bit better. Maybe he doesn't need an older guy like that to stand in with him.
So I think I agree with you. Does it change your thought knowing that the players vote for the captains?
Not really.
No,
because I think that's still kind of. I think my theory can still apply that like the team saw someone new in there and thought, hey, let's get one of these guys that we know in there as well. And then this year, things kind of change and they don't want. Not knowing the inner workings of it at all, I think they also look at it and say, well, we don't want anyone stepping on Kenny's toes, I guess, if that makes sense. Like he's the guy and we're going to prove that to him. We're going to give him that kind of confidence, that kind of affirmation by making him the lone captain. That's what I would think went on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think anybody was jabbing Najee, and I think you're right. Like, I think it was just a change of the guard. Here it is. Kenny's our guy for the future. Like, I would imagine Kenny to be the captain for the rest of Kenny's career in Pittsburgh. Like, that's just what I would anticipate. And, I don't know if Anthony Richardson is the guy to compare him to, just because like I couldn't name 3 other guys on the Colts besides Anthony Richardson, and that's just what it is. But I agree. Like, I think it's just a quarterback thing. I also think that it does show that the team really does believe in the hype of Kenny Pickett, which I think is significant. Like, I think that if we walked into this year, and you could use last year as an example, you looked at Mitch and you looked at Najee last year and you said, okay, they have 2 because they don't want, this is a new guy. They don't know what they're going to get out of him. They also want Najee, who's a proven veteran, proven leader. Let's make him a captain as well. This year, it's like, no, we know we have in this guy. We don't need anybody else. This is our quarterback. We fully believe in what Kenny Pickett can bring to this team and what he can do for us. I think as a second-year guy, that's huge. I think you also see it. Like, you've seen Kenny evolve from year 1 to year 2. There's no more. I mean, you could see it with the media. You could see last year it was, we'll explain as much as we can to try to defend our guys. This year it's, I'm going to just tell it to you as it is, because as it is pretty good. And if you don't like what you're hearing, then you're not understanding what we're trying to do. And I get that hard times haven't hit yet, but you got a lot of that in training camp, that Kenny was just like a lot more straightforward, a lot more like, look, this is my team. I'm going to address you guys as if I'm speaking for my team, and I'm going to speak, this is like, we're very optimistic about this team. We're very together as a unit. Nobody's going to break that. Whereas in last year, I thought it was a lot of defending. So I think you could see it there. Let me bring up this stat for you at the same time here. So on the same day that Kenny was named captain, the Ringer dropped their quarterback rankings, which if you haven't checked out the Ringer's quarterback rankings, they're actually pretty cool. I like the layout. I enjoy everything that they got going on here. They classified him as the 26th ranked quarterback, with the 2 key characteristics here of got that dog in him and deceptive eyes. Not totally sure what deceptive eyes they're looking for there. I guess he's got a little Patrick Mahomes in him, but they characterized him, or I guess their little description of him is, what if Josh Allen had just okay tools? And, it got me thinking, like, okay, Like, I like that. I think Kenny's got a little bit more in some areas than Josh Allen, but if you're going to take a less 6'6" or however big Josh Allen is with an arm that could throw 85 yards, I'll take it. I wouldn't be upset if that was how I was described as a quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah. Like, I don't hate that comparison at all. The thing about Josh Allen is just like he's like mostly tools, where
he's all tools.
Yeah. Whereas Kenny, like, I think has a little bit more, I don't know, depth might not be the word, but like, I don't know.
Dude, he's got way more brains going on up there.
Sure. Yeah. And the way I think, I was trying to avoid putting it that bluntly, but like, yeah, like I think Kenny is one of those guys where when you don't have elite tools like Josh Allen does, you have to do a lot of other things well. You have to be a really great decision maker. And that's something I think Kenny does really well. I think got that dog in him is just, he's got a toughness and a poise to him that really helps him as well, and really helps him account for maybe what some might consider some lackluster tools. So, I don't, it's just a little bit of a weird thing to like, it's to square it in your head, because Josh Allen is so like toolsy and so like just relies on that all the time. But I mean, if he can be 80% of what Josh Allen is, you'll take that. Like you'll or whatever the, percentage of it is, because Josh Allen is a freak. And I think Kenny has kind of an advantage in kind of brains and intelligence that, and decision making that makes that okay. Like you can live with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I think that the description is so short that it almost comes off as like an insult, when if you elaborated a little bit and just said, what if Josh Allen had just okay tools, but way better decision making and instincts with the football? You'd say, oh, well, that's a damn good quarterback. Like I feel really good about that one. And I think that's what Kenny Pickett is. Like he's got all the tools. He could run. He could throw the football. I don't know how deep he could throw a football, but I don't really think the Steelers care right now. Like I think if he could throw 40-yard dimes, they're like, yeah, that's fine, man. What do we don't need anything else crazy. Like you could just do that and we'll make it work. But at the same time, like you get into a game and last year you didn't see it early, but you saw it late. Like you get into a game where it's a 2-minute drive and Josh Allen's on the football field. I don't know if I'm betting on Josh Allen. You get into a game where there's a 2-minute drive and Kenny Pickett is on the football field, I'm putting my money on Kenny Pickett. Like that's what he's going to do. And you could go as far back as like the fake slide. Like that is instinct at its best, to just say like that the play's not done. It was supposed to be, but it's not done yet. Yeah. Like most guys would just be like, this is the end of this. Kenny instinctually was just like, no. And I think you could see all those examples all the time. So I think, if you're 80% of Josh Allen, cool. Like that's awesome. If you're 80% of Josh Allen with like 70% of Patrick Mahomes' football IQ, you're like, oh, that's a great quarterback. Like that's, if we're building a quarterback, sounds good to me. Like that seems pretty okay. So I feel like 26, I don't know. He's like below Jordan Love and a couple other guys that I thought were questionable, but the description was like, oh, okay. But I think that they hit it spot on, which is, full circle here. I think that's exactly why the Steelers have so much faith in this guy, because like, I think coming into the league, all you could focus on was how he just had okay tools, and a year in, you're just like, you could do so much with just okay tools and his head.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like, even like okay tools are, I don't know, okay tools are much more common in decent quarterbacks than I think people realize. Like, do you think Joe Burrow has an especially strong arm compared to like other guys in his class? Does he have,
Tom Brady?
Is Joe Burrow especially like he's not mobile like Lamar or Jalen Hurts or even Mahomes, quite honestly, but he gets it done. Like there's an it factor there that helps him get it done. So yeah, I don't think he needs to be Josh Allen's level of tools or anything for the Steelers to be really successful. So
no, Tom Brady, man, you should have won with Tom Brady. You watched him your whole life. You should have won with Tom Brady. But that's what I'm saying. Like Tom Brady was never known as. Yeah, I mean, Tom Brady has a great arm. Don't get me wrong.
But like coming in, that wasn't what you liked about him. That wasn't.
Yep. Yep. If you look at the grand scheme of Tom Brady's career, especially the guys that he's played with, because he's played with like one of the greatest quarterback generations of all time, probably the best quarterback generation of all time. And the guys around him, like Aaron Rodgers, you know what I mean? Brett Favre, even like toolbox wise, 10 times what Tom Brady had. I wouldn't put Peyton Manning in that characteristic, but what Tom Brady had was the everything else, you know, on top of just like he was starting caliber quarterback when it came to his arm, and Hall of Famer, greatest of all time when it came to all the mentals. And I like that's fine. If you're going to bring Kenny Pickett as starting quality or starting caliber quarterback arm and footwork and the whole nine, and then he's got that dog. And I mean, if that's it, like if that's all you're going for, you should feel pretty good about where you stand with the Pittsburgh Steelers and their future with their quarterback. All right. With that said, we got one more show left before week 1, Sunday kickoff against the San Francisco 49ers. Hopefully it's not 95 degrees outside for everybody who's headed to Acrisure Stadium. Fingers crossed. But we're heading out here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk, and find us anywhere you get your podcast. There will be plenty of news leading up to Sunday's kickoff at Acrisure Stadium. So find all of that at allsteelers.com. And as always, our pick coverage at InsideThePanthers.com. We will be back on Friday. Enjoy a beautiful but very, very warm week in the Berg. Peace.